Let me go ahead and get a mic check and just say your first and last
All right.
name.
Jim Johnson, Johnsson, test 1 2 1 2.
All right. Yeah. I'm
Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Everybody good? All right, good afternoon. We welcome y'all to this news release as an update on the missing child that we searched for yesterday. As many of you know, yesterday morning about 11:30, the Lee County Sheriff's Department was dispatched to a County Road 711 residence where a 5-year-old child was reported missing. This was a little male child that had supposedly been reported that he had walked off from home. There was a diligent search for about 10 to 12 hours yesterday that was made up of state and federal law enforcement, fire departments, Homeland Security, the Lee County Sheriff's Department, surrounding sheriff's departments, volunteer fire departments. There were EMA directors, Mississippi Highway Patrol, and the Special Response Search and Rescue units from the north half of the state, which was combined with many law enforcement and fire department agencies, as well as just volunteers from the community that came out with four-wheelers, horses, boots on the ground, that was working very diligently in this heat and searching miles from this house. We covered probably a 2 or 3 mile radius from the house in the timeline. And when you're searching for someone that small, or anyone, I mean, there's no tree that can't be looked up, no leaf that can't be unturned, no building that can't be searched, ditches, there was water, there was everything but hills involved in this search. So it took quite some time to be looking for this child, and as the hours went on and the heat got worse and then nightfall came, we just were not seeing any results and beginning to get very, very concerned of this child that was 5 years old that was out there. There was one particular thing that was interesting with this particular case, and it was that we believed from the very beginning, as what we were told, that he was accompanied by 2 dogs. And that was a very important clue when it came to searching, because then instead of just looking for one individual, you were basically looking for 3 things. You were looking for the child or one of the 2 dogs. So it did help when it came to the end result of how we were able to come to the conclusion and results that we had. But whether you were bringing water as a volunteer fire department or a civilian, all the way up to no one's any more important than anybody else, but I would say the helicopter pilot, your search and your diligence was much appreciated, and I want people to know that. From the news crew to the social media, everybody that shared this information, this is why we had the results that we had, on top of God watching over us and bringing us to the point that we are. We were very fortunate to report last night about 10:15, right after the 10 o'clock news, that the child had been spotted, or a young boy had been spotted, around Highway 45 and Green Street exit. That's the new Highway 6 278 that was completed several years ago. As you know, there is a nice neighborhood that is on the south side of Green Street in that particular area. A good bit of woods just east of there, and then you cross over Green Street and you have some commercial buildings, trucking centers. There's some mobile homes parked there. As you go under Green Street and look to your right, you can see headed north. There was an individual that was passing by going to work that noticed a child, and she believed that there was 1 dog with it later last night. Didn't think a lot about it, just thought that the child might have been walking there in the neighborhood because there was a residence there, but was enough concerned that she made some calls, and that's when she found out that there was a child missing in that particular area. And so that one call was the call that really sparked the results and the end results that we had. Once the call came in, Lee County Sheriff's Department deputies were dispatched to that particular area. The child was located. The child was safe. He was very wet. He was very dehydrated. Did not have any shoes on. Was dressed in the same clothing that was described as leaving, basically pajama type clothes. Was lying in a ditch that would not have been seen by someone passing by or even a deputy shining his lights. You couldn't have seen the little fellow laying there in the ditch. But what gave it away was the dogs, that we went back to the original story of how important it was not to just be looking for the child, but everything that we put out. And this particular person followed those directions. And, you know, the child was saved with the dogs. That's basically what happened. It was almost if you're my age and you remember Lassie, that's kind of what it reminded you of, that Lassie never would leave his partner. And these dogs stayed there with him. So at that particular time, we called the North Mississippi Medical Center. They came, treated the child. We asked them to go ahead and transport the child to the hospital due to some dehydration that we felt like it was, and just for a checkup, because you're talking about a child that had wandered 10 or 11 hours there in those woods in that heat, and wanted to make sure that there was not any health issues there. Today we bring you to this release to tell you exactly where it has led to. The child has been released from the hospital. The child was taken into Child Protective Services and is now placed in a safe home environment, and we're working with the courts to determine what is the best avenue, working with CPS, of where this child will go. We also immediately started looking into the parents. What we found out yesterday through this investigation was yesterday morning this child got up and the mom and dad saw this child around 8 o'clock a.m. And went back to bed and left this child unattended. There was another male subject in the house over the age of 18 that got up around 10:30, looked out the back window, saw the child outside playing with the dogs. From our investigation, did not call the child inside, did not go outside to make sure the child was okay. But according to their own statement, went back to bed. So you had both parents and this other responsible adult that felt it was more important to go to sleep and rest and not take care of this child. So the parents finally got up around 11 or 11:30, and that's when they found out the child was not around. And so that's when we were called and the search began. Due to the nature of what happened yesterday, also previous information that we were able to gather yesterday, that this was not an uncommon thing that this child was left unattended. Even at the wee hours of the morning, we have information this child would be wandering around outside. Never anything to the degree of where we found him yesterday, but still was not being watched and cared for by the responsible parties. This morning, we were dispatched back to that residence, to a piece of rental property or utility shed located right behind where this child lived, to a disturbance. There were 2 people arrested for domestic violence, unrelated to this, but it just shows a pattern of what this child was being raised in and what everyday life that this child was. We also made an arrest on the mom and dad. Her name is Amber Lindsay. She's 33 years of age. And Robert Holcomb Sr., 39 years of age, both of County Road 711. They are the parents that we talked to yesterday. They are the parents that were responsible for this child. When we made the arrest today, there was a little over 4 grams of meth that was taken from Miss Lindsay, and both parents are now in custody and charged with 1 count of felony child neglect, as well as possession of a felony amount of meth. This case is personal. When the responsibility lies on your shoulders that a 5-year-old child is missing, and you know that child is helpless, that is an enormous weight to carry. And I can't express my appreciation and thanks to everybody involved that helped get this child safely home. We appreciate your prayers. I had so many texts of people calling and just saying, hey, we can't be there, but we're praying for you. And I appreciate that. That is ultimately where the results came from. Again, we're working with CPS to ensure I will exhaust all means that I have within my power to ensure this child is not put back in that situation again. Again, today we've arrested the mom and dad and charged them each with 1 count of felony child neglect, and they'll be awaiting bond Monday. Thank you.
This is the original post that was posted on Facebook whenever the little boy first went missing yesterday. And thank goodness for that lady that drove by and saw the little boy and his dog. That is a perfect example of if you see something, say something. And thank goodness she called and reported the little boy. And because of that call, that she saw something and she said something, the little boy was found safe.